Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. Yeah, it's that one, I'm afraid. The Reds' 26-match unbeaten run comes to an end with a defeat at the Cottage. It was glorious sunshine, but it was horrendous defending, wasn't it? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the statistics around the subs. We'll talk about, is there any positives to come to? And we'll even have a look at the West Ham game coming up. But I am delighted to welcome a man who I could be rivaling because it currently sits, according to my thermometer, at 19 degrees here in Edinburgh, Barts. And I've actually got the blind up and it's still shining through. We're not close though, are we?
No, we're not, mate. But, later, baby.
Yeah, Mauritius and Edinburgh are not really in any comparison, are they? But there we go. And ladies and gents, the format of tonight is a little bit different. He'll be under time pressure, Will the Doc, and he's got a few questions that he needs to answer for me, sharp and fast. We'll see how he does because we want to get to the hard and solid facts of the eye test. So, thesis number one, Bart. Can we prove the first half, according to the eye test, was just as big a disaster as it looked? And the second half was a good rally, but there was just too much to do. Your 5 minutes or so begin now.
So, overall stats here, you can see at the top line, are not that dissimilar to a Liverpool game this season. Right? Dominant possession, dominant field till, total shots. It's fairly unusual for us to lose that, but not to only win it by 2 is probably gives you an indication of where things to go. Still had more shots in the penalty box than the opposition. Touches in the penalty box up to about 30, which is better than pre the break, if you go, where we'd start to have lower amounts. XG, this is where things get a little bit awry because it's only 1 XG for us, but we kept them below a level. So we're still keeping the opposition down, if you know what I mean. Threats conversion. This is which has been off the boil for us for, I would say, a month. Taking out the international break, we have not been making the right decisions in the final third, particularly in the goods areas when we've had threat. We haven't been turning that into XG. Defensively, keeping the upper around 50 is still good, right? That's okay. I was saying to Mr. Lynch when he was asking me earlier today about what does it all mean. And I said, truly elite is to keep an opposition at 30% conversion. To keep it at 50 is good, right? So that's not bad. That's a little shoot, should we say, right? The problem is when you break things down. So first off, we gave them 3 big chances, right? And the bit I haven't got in it because I don't generally put it in because it's bonkers. Is errors leading to a chance or errors leading to a shot? We had 4 of those in the first half, right? So that's like the first time since, I don't even think from the dark Rodgers days did we give up, did make 4 shot leading errors in 1 half. It's just something we just don't do, and we did it in this game. So we gave up 3 big chances, right? Which meant, we know what big chances generally a half decent side, and Fulham are more than a half decent side. We'll take those big chances. And they did. They scored 3 goals. Robbo made 2 errors in one goal and another one. So it's kind of, so that first half, I think it's fair to say, was truly awful. In terms of XG, we only created 0.05. Yes, that's 5% people. And we let them create 0.55. Now, that's a ridiculous stat if you think about it. They scored 3 goals for 0.55 XG. That's insane, right? That's just but that gives you the indicator. I've heard the DARF in the group at UP was, this gives you an indicator of how much of an impact errors have on football matches. You can say all of you want, but if you make this type of basic error, which we did 4 of them in the first half, that's what happens. You deserve to get it. Second half, fine. We turned it around. We created 3 big chances. We didn't take it. We took 1. out of 3 created. We scored 1 goal, and we created, over 1 XG, and they only let them create 2-1. So it's not that much different from there. So our threat conversion second half went up to 80%, getting near 100, which we want, but we let 60, 70. So it's getting near where we want, and we reduced them to 27%. So yeah, first half, they converted their threats 83%, which is insane, and we only converted at 8.2%, which again is it's a season low for a half, right? So yeah, this definitely was a very poor first half, but we did kind of bring it around second half, but not enough. And we'll go on to the value. So it wasn't quite enough. The bit that will annoy people is that the rally actually meant that in normal circumstances we should have won the game. It's just, if you create 3 big chances away from home without man XG, you probably should expect to take one of them. I dropped a pivotal 50 odd minutes. That was probably one of the key moments of the first half. We didn't take it. We therefore didn't score until Diaz came on, which is in the 60th, which later on in that purple patch where Bradley came on at 67. That's when we scored, which is probably a bit too late. We left ourselves too much to do in the latter periods. But yeah, to answer your first question, first half was particularly poor because of the errors we made on the ball. Robbo being particularly poor on that. Van Dijk. Jones, I'm a little bit less harsh on because I think you'd expect your massive centre-half mate to head the ball away and not fall under it.
Yeah.
And then he just hits him on the leg and pops up for a shot. So, but other than that, the way the side didn't adapt and didn't go again, the sort of went shots rather than keep playing is probably something to think about. But yeah, that's your first question answered. I would suggest the rally was not enough, but it was a good rally.
Tell you what, Barts, I didn't start putting you under more time pressure. That's the best summary I think you've ever given me as well. Well, we'll come to 5-minute thesis number 2, Barts. And this is maybe the big one. This is trying to bring it up a little bit as well, because Connor Bradley's back. Alisson, fingers crossed, should be back at the weekend. Luis Diaz made a real impact. So, in fact, 2 of the subs get a goal and an assist, don't they, combine for the second one. So, the 2 questions for this one. The impact of the subs, is that a positive to take into the weekend, number 1? And number 2, I don't want to be harsh on Kelleher, but you just feel with the quality of the chances, Alisson saves 1. Can we see that in the stats?
So this is before the first ups pass network. You'll see it's a bit congested, should we say, that's 1 box effectively. You've got 5 players in 1 box. Robbo playing deep because he's up against pace. We've known that. That's Robbo's default. If he's playing against pace, he doesn't really do the attacking stuff, which doesn't help us out. And then Curtis playing the right back. He's playing it more conservative, should we say, but he's also playing it narrow because he's been told to come in here and help out the midfield a little bit. He also cannot cross the ball. And that's even some of his biggest fans will tell you one of his weaknesses is he can't really cross the ball. So there's no real point in him being out here, apart from the fact he would have taken a player from home. But anyway, by the way. Also, what you'll normally see from us is a definite C. You're not seeing that because the connections with Mo and Cody are poor. And I'm not really accepting the fact that I was listening to CBS tell me that Mo was having a poor game. And I'm not saying he was great, but to have a game at all, you actually have to give the guy the ball. And we found it incredibly difficult to give our best player the ball in the first half. So, I think the better judgment is probably second half. And if we go post-up second half, Mo's a little further in. Yes, he's still not connecting in, so he's not his top level, but we did get the ball more. Connor is taking up a little bit more advanced strategy. This is a bit mixed up because remember this time Canate comes off and then Grab starts playing the Regesta kind of role. Robbo's still on for large pass, but he's higher. Diaz automatically operating in the left half space. That's kind of where you want. You force Jota to start operating in 14 and you get a bit more depth into the passing network. So there is an impact there in terms of what you would expect. And if we look at what we look to do in the final third, so This is the first substitution, still not a lot of connections. This is the second substitution period. There's a lot more connections happening in the final third than the further up, versus the first half where there's very, very little going on, to be fair. Now, to look at some threat creation, which you could indicate whether or not the players had a good impact or not. So we've got up to first subs here. So again, largely in this centre circle, which was, as I said, on the past team was very condensed, not a lot outside and not a lot in the half spaces. What happens when we make the changes? You get a lot more out wide. You get 8, 9, 10 in the half spaces in zone 14. So that we start increasing the threat in there. It's still not at the levels we'd expect because we've seen the conversion isn't great. But at least we're actually giving Mo the ball here because he's creating 13% threat as opposed to 5 pre the first subs. So that's a distinct difference in the pattern of what we started to do. If we look at some of the stuff, I ran a special one for you. So this is our progressive long passes and crosses. What do we do over the time periods? Sort of in the first half, we're a bit left side dominant, right? So all going over to the left to try and find Cody. As soon as we clock on after half time, we start finding that right again. And particularly, we've got more progressive, which is at red, in the latter half of the second half, right? So that gives you some indication that the subs were starting to work. If we go back to our classic zone 14 plots, you can see the volume changes in these areas in the second half as opposed to the first. This period here is where Bradley comes on 67, and then he carries on. This is a particular area of interest because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 progressive passes all in and around zone 14 and the right half space, which is Bradley and Mo. So there is starting to see a bit of signs there. It is always going to be hard to identify the impact of one player when there are 3 other changes at the time, and we have to caveat that. But there is some indication that Bradley did have an impact. In terms of player analysis, because I know we often like to look at what happened. So in his time on the pitch, Bradley we know doesn't actually contribute to that much threat. We know that from previous games, right? So 4.8% in half an hour. Okay, that's not nothing to really write home about. Curtis Jones 6.7 in 100 minutes gives you a little bit of an indication that maybe that's not too bad in the context of the game. All right. True. What did Bradley do off the ball? We're not really that interested, but he did win 100% of his duels. And he did spend most of his time in the middle third. So some pluses for him. Diaz particularly spent 65% of his time in the attacking third. And in terms of touches, Luis Diaz had 4 penalty box touches, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the same. Where's Mo Salah gone? It's more than Mo Salah did for the whole game.
Wow.
So gives you 2 sides there. The thing I had is we didn't give Mo enough the ball in the right areas, true. Yeah. But equally, when Diaz came on, he got it and he got in the box, which is what we needed. So there you go. And to answer your final question, should Kelleher have saved it? Now, I'm not really one for bagging on Platt. You know that. I'm trying to find a positive. But remember the ratio between XG and post shot, right? Yeah. If the post shot increases by about 30%, then it says the player added something to the shot and made it harder to save than the initial chance, right? True. So bear that in mind. So the first one is 31 minutes. Am I right with that? Minute 22. 30 on. It's a 0.4 chance, but he adds on 40%. Right. So he makes that chance very difficult for Kelleher to save, right? Okay, or more difficult, should we say. So you can kind of say, maybe not. Iwobi's, he only adds on, 11%. So that one, I would suggest, and that was the up high, wasn't it? That was deflected off, a bit more essential, deflected. So that one is one of the ones I would maybe suggest could have done better, and he might have saved. And he might have also saved the setting up because of the positioning he would have been in. But I'm just telling you, in terms of what the player did to it, he added substantially more quality to that shot than the Iwobi. Now, the Nunes one, which I thought was the game killer one, to be fair, because if you go 3-1 down, 2-1, you kind of, we've seen it do it before, but to go 3-1 down, I thought that was a bit of a killer. It was only 11% chance, and he only nudged it up 8%. So again, that's another one. And the angle, this is really not a good angle to be considered from. It's very square. You got nothing. We could say it's a good finish. We could be positive like that. But would we expect Alisson to save that? And I think there's a fair chance that Ali would have saved one of these two chances. Either the Nunes one, is it Moons one, or the Iwobi one. I think there's a fair chance that Ali would have saved that, because generally speaking, he outperforms his post shot is outperforming by about 10%, if not more. So those are in his range. The setting on the opener, maybe not. But yeah. So that's probably my analysis on whether I think Kev could have done better. I think Kev is a good Premier League keeper.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to win the league, I think you need a nudge above Kev to win you the league. And people might say that's really harsh because he did well in certain seasons. And he did. And you've got to remember when last time we won the title, we had Adrian playing with us for 8 games or something. Yeah. Forget that. He was last year a disaster after that period, but for that actual period of time, he was pretty good. So, I think this is something. I don't think Kevin's been in good form in this period he's coming for. I think he was poor in the League Cup final against Everton. He didn't really have a lot to do. And what he did do, there was a few little moments on crossing. Some of that stuff, the handling wasn't great. And this game, I think some of his passing wasn't up to his usual level. I could suggest 2 of the chances Ali might have saved.
Which, if you think back to the eye test, people, it is that Mooney's chance, isn't it, for 3-1? It seems an acute angle. And for want of a better phrase, it just seems to go through him a little bit. And if you don't believe us, look at the stats. And like I say, he didn't add that much on. I think it's fair to say you would expect Alisson to save that. If not possibly the Iwobi one. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, we'd agree. But Alisson back at the weekend could be absolutely massive. And this is the one I want to talk about this weekend, Barts. So we can't change anything for this one at all. But for West Ham at the weekend, I mean, when we look on the screen here, West Ham, I'm not saying you would actually handpick this, but they are 16th in the league. They've only won 9 games out of 31 all season. You look at their form as well. It's 1 win in the last 5. And respectfully, that's against Leicester, and everyone beats Leicester right now. In all honesty, the stats just show that. You look at their goals they're conceding, they're getting beat by Wolves, and even at the weekend, Bournemouth should have probably won it. They just gave up soft equalisers twice to them, so that's a factor as well. 16th in the league. When you look at the away table, Barts, they've won 4 games away from home all season. And get this, Barts, they've scored 15. That's actually, when you look at it, you'll be impressed by me doing this. That is the 4th worst record in the Premier League. It's terrible, in all honesty. And just for a bit of history, for anyone who wants to do a research, let me just summarise and say West Ham's record at Anfield is crap if you want to research the history fully. So I'm hoping to build this up with West Ham's crap record, with their lack of goals away, with their lack of wins away, where they are in the league, the form table, Alisson possibly back, Bradley possibly back, Barts an understat. Don't let me down on this.
So, West Ham overall for understat are, they should have scored 41 goals and they scored 35. Conversely, defensively, they should have conceded 58 and they've only conceded 52. So they go basically over and under, performing the wrong way. In terms of points, they should have got, how many points have they actually got? I've got now 35, and Understats actually only got 32. That's overall. Now, if we do what you did, we just say, where are they in terms of away? They're a little notch up. They're actually a little bit higher in the table than when you combine them. But they should have scored 19 and they've scored 15. So again, that underperformance up in front of goal continues. Defensively, they should have conceded 24 and they've only conceded 22. So again, they're both not doing great, but defensively about 9 to be fair. Points wise, should have got 17 and they've actually got 17. So they're bang in line really, which says that they are away from home. They're not great. They don't travel very well. All of those old cliches, but that is where they are. PPDA, which is passes per defensive action, just to let you know. So they are 12.53, which is pretty poor, to be fair. Considering we're ninth, we allow 9 passes per defensive action. They are right down the bottom. Considering that's really not a great position to be in. What do they let the Oppo do? So we don't let the opposition get very high. They are particularly poor at that as well, 8.17. So yeah, that's not great. That could be quite good for us. I.e., they're not going to look to put a lot of pressure on the ball. And yeah, they allow you to put pressure on them. In terms of where they are, so what have they done recently? So scores and fixtures, that quick. So as you said, they've not had a great little run. What's that? They did win back to back though. I mean, you got to give them some credit, right? Beat Arsenal and then Leicester City. That's probably their best run of the season. So not to be too stiff down. But in terms of XG, they generally, I mean, that's around the 1. Let's be frank. They've also got less than 1 in 4 out of the last, so 3 out of the last 4. So there you go. In terms of what they concede, 1.5 is probably where they're at, but they haven't played. The last time they played decent sides, the Newcastle and Bournemouth, they conceded 1.4 and 2. So that gives you an indication when they play a high quality side, they concede a bit more XG. When they played Arsenal, 1.2, but then Arsenal don't really do a lot apart from set plays. So that bears out. In terms of, we normally look at shots they concede and the rest of it. Yeah. So West Ham genuinely here this is the number of shots. I had to double check there because the numbers were that low. Number of shots per game, 9, 10, 10, 9, 8, 8, 5. I mean, that's not great reading, to be honest with you, but there you are. And shots on target, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 3. So that's a really poor rate. That's basically 10% of their shots roughly are on target.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeding wise though, if that wants to load up, maybe not. Yeah, it should do. It's kind of funny. They are conceding in and around 20 shots against Arsenal. Bournemouth only got 11 off, but they're conceding nearly 5 on target. So nearly a 50-50 ratio, if you like, of on target they conceded. So I think there's some elements there that we would normally look to exploit. If we can start with the energy we need to, and I'm not saying that, I'm not getting into it particularly, I'm just saying rather than this lethargic notion or slow start, to be pragmatic in the first half, I think this might be a game where we have to go out and absolutely try and blow them away early on. Get what we need out of it. There is no reason for us to not go hammer and tongs or full throttle, whichever other phrase you want, for the rest of our remaining games, because we're not playing twice a week anymore, right? Arsenal playing, I believe, tonight, is it, or tonight?
Yeah,
and they'll play the following weekend. So there will be there is an opportunity with Arsenal playing this weekend. If they beat Real Madrid, there'll be a game, 2 games a week, where they might not be fully focused on the league. So you need to get out there, get the points down, and then move on. So, yeah, I think their record at Anfield is not great. They concede a fair amount of shots. Their XG, they concede a fair amount of XG. They are underperforming defensively, and they're underperforming up front. Those are all kind of recipes that normally, if we were in our very, very best, I would suggest it should be fairly straightforward. But it'll be interesting to see how we set ourselves up and see who's back. I think Bradley will help. I don't think he's quite a silver bullet that people will make him out to be. I think he'll just be good by the fact that he's actually a right back. I think that will actually help us play. I'd also suggest that Konate's form was a bit of a worry over this since Christmas, and you might want to consider whether that's a potential change going forward. But that would be a big call to make from Slot, and I'm not sure he's going to do that. So there you go. That's my West Ham thoughts. Plenty of opportunities for us. Selection will be key, as always, but I think very pivotal now as we respond to our first defeat in 26.
Yeah, it does feel that way. In simple terms, people, they've won 4 away from home. As we both said, their Anfield record is terrible. As understats show, it's low single figures they tend to get shots, as in what they create. It's double figures and more for chances they concede at the same time as well. Also, when you look at West Ham, as we said, 16th in the table, they've got too many points to go down. It's flip-flop time a little bit for them. They might be a side you would handpick in your running. You cannot avoid that. People will also look and think, what about the players they've got and goals? And yes, Jared Bowen did hit 20 goals last season. Currently only sits on 9. Maybe those are famous last words, because Jared Bowen loves a goal against Liverpool. That will be the one to watch out for, the danger man. But I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Barts, in simple terms, if you were picking the 7 fixtures to finish the season, it wouldn't be top on the leaderboard, family fortune style, but West Ham at home would be in the mix, wouldn't it?
100%. I mean, I think we've got Leicester as well, haven't we? And we've got some other. I think there's plenty in there where you'd sort of go, yeah, I can see why that's good for us. I love we've had Ipswich, haven't we? So we've got some very good, favourable fixtures for us coming up. So West Ham at home, certainly, given the record and the rest of it, I think is probably one you would take when offered. I mean, the running when you looked when this first came out, I was thinking that's not too bad. I mean, we've got Leicester after this one away, which again,
take that.
Currently, you take that, right? Then you have got a few bigger sides, should we say? But Tottenham at Anfield, generally a game. Last words, but is one we generally do all right with.
Yeah.
Chelsea and Arsenal, Brighton could be tricky because they're good sides and they're away and home, away fixtures in there, so that's tricky. But hopefully, I mean, we only need 9.9. We only need that. We don't need that many points. So I would suggest the next 9 to play for are fairly favourable. Touch wood. That could be famous last words. If you were going to pick to try and get the League One, that's not a bad set 3 to try and do that with.
It's not. And it starts on Sunday against West Ham, where, if we're honest, we'll see what happens, but all the metrics favour us. In terms of Fulham, Alisson would have saved one. The stats indicate the subs made a difference. That's the positive. The things to hope do not happen again is a defensive disaster class. And I think it is right, as Bart said, let's hope Ibu Konate especially, and the skipper as well, look back to form as quick as possible. But there we go. We will see what the weekend brings. All that leaves me to say as ever is, Bart, for the time, the insight, and all the statistics, it is much appreciated.
No worries.
And ladies and gents, that was another Stat Me Up